Okay, okay, guys. You want to kind of get comfy, pull up chairs, all that good stuff. Hey, guys. Grab pizza, all that good stuff. I'm going to send around just a little notebook. I would like you just to put your name and your email address in it. Especially for those of you who that are going to be applying. If you are a sophomore, and I know a few sophomores, or not sophomore, if you are a freshman, I know a few freshmen are here. Just go ahead and just do a little star next to your name, just so if I don't know that, I know that you'll be targeted for next. That sounds really harsh. You'll be targeted. That you'll be part of next year's cycle too. Not that we'll target. So, here, I'll hand this here first. We do have a large number of juniors and seniors who are Hollings scholars. So, you guys want to say wave to the group that wants to be guys? Yeah, and they're going to be part of this conversation. The way that we traditionally set this up, and I'm recording it, so it will go up on YouTube. It will be shared with you. Right now, it's pretty much just me that you'll see, but you might pop up on it. Yeah, or like yours could be famous in a very small bubble. So what tonight will be a conversation that I'll record. We'll kind of focus on an overview of the program. I'm hoping that we can get a NOAA, I guess you'd say, she's part of the NOAA education cycle. She is also an Eckerd alum, also a Hollings alum. I'm hoping that she'll be able to pop on. If not, she said that she would kind of do a recording with me so that she can kind of give you some more insights into it. But that's, like I said, we're waiting to see if she can kind of Skype in. So I might, if I hear something, I might pop over there. And then towards the end of the session tonight, we'll kind of focus on not just tips and strategies, but we'll also focus on what does this process look like, and then what does it mean to be a Hollings scholar. So first and foremost, welcome. It's good to see all of you guys here. I think the big thing that I kind of want to start with is just with our current Hollings scholars, just to kind of give them a little bit of space to introduce themselves and to talk a little bit about what they view as their, I guess you'd say, not a tip for success, but a tip that helped to get them through the process, because the process is long. So we'll start over on this side, and then we'll go around. So.
Hi, my name is Rosemary Burkhalter Castro. I was part of the Hollings class last week, and I will be doing my internship this summer. Tips are start your application early, because it helps to review the application process multiple times, gives you more confidence.
Yeah, because the first essay draft is going to be cheesy. It's just, you can't get away from it. You're going to write how much you love the ocean. Everyone does it. Even if you do love it. We're going to work through that. So great tip. Grab some chairs, guys, too. Get comfy. Yes, the folders probably. But yeah, we'll go ahead.
I'm Sophie. I'm a senior. I would say in terms of drafting, just get a lot of people to look at it. The more eyes, the better. And especially people who know you really well, they'll be able to kind of help you figure out what they're trying to say sometimes, and you can't figure it out. And you're really frustrated.
I'm Angela. I'm also a senior. Mine would be outlines really helped me, and Kat has a really good way of making a good outline. And my first draft was super long, but it made it a lot easier just to narrow it down and not have to work in the reverse direction. Also, we wrote mine backwards. That helped me, just because you want it to start kind of you don't want it to start everybody's essays kind of start when they were a kid, yada yada yada. So if you work backwards, then you can sometimes have your conclusion be your starting point. So it just kind of changes things up and makes it more interesting to read. So yeah.
And the essay for the Hollings is 6,000 to 9,000 characters. That's including spaces. So it sounds like a lot, but it really, by the time you get to writing it, it feels really tight. The other thing too to remind you is that it's 60% of the deciding factor for your application. So it's in some ways ranked. It's a very heavily ranked part of your application, which is a little bit different than a lot of the applications, like for RAUs that you might be doing, or other programs. So it really does matter. So go on over here.
Okay.
mission statement is a good thing. Bringing in that vocabulary, because it's a big organization with a lot of moving parts, so you don't want to be vague, you want to be kind of targeted and really tie yourself in. So that's good.
I'm interested in, I guess I would say, figure out what you actually want from Hollings and tell them. So like if you want to do research, tell them what kind of research you want to do and how Hollings will help you with that. Or if you want to become a professor, how Hollings will help you with that. Those kind of things.
And education is another component. I mean, they have, of course, research is what is kind of the focus in many ways of a conversation like tonight. But NOAA has a lot of different branches, and so even if you really are interested in research, but you're also equally interested in being a professor, education, or even in journalism, or even in scientific writing, there's lots of components, and so really that's great advice, going where you can really fulfill both your kind of desires, but you can also connect with theirs. And I know, Sophie, your program this summer was not really research. The NOAA work that you did
It was mostly education based, yeah. I mean, it was education research, partially, but it was a lot of writing curriculum too.
Yeah, which is a very different platform than you might be thinking if you are kind of going, oh, I'm going to go do research on that. But there's a lot of different moving parts with NOAA. And that's why I always tell people, don't just think because you don't have a lot of research experience that you're not going to be a good fit. The way that it works, and just to kind of dovetail off of kind of what we've all been saying, is they're looking at you as an applicant. Yes, research is one of those components. And so if you're pure research, you've been doing it, you're there, that's what you want to do, having some research will make your application stronger. But it won't mean that if you're really interested in research and you don't have any experience that you won't get it, because you might have a very compelling platform for what you want to do and how you might align with it. So don't automatically hit the, for lack of better terms, and for those of you who don't know me, I curse like a sailor. Don't hit the fuck it button just because you're like, I don't have any research experience and they're not going to pick me, because they have a wide platform of selection criteria. So that's good.
My name is Eliza, and I think everything that's already been said is pretty important. Just like draft it, definitely a few times. I think I drafted mine maybe 6 or 7. Get some people to look it over and be honest with yourself about what you want to get out of the program and how NOAA's mission can help you.
And the honesty, right? Like that's the big thing that comes through in all of the applications is it takes a long time to not write cheese and to not just write what you think they want to hear and to be the honest you that really can come to it with that. So take some time. Right now we're in October. You've got some runway. In fact, you've got a lot of runway. I hate to say that because I know I've had so many students that are like, is that an ECR deadline or is that another deadline? I'm like, what, is there a difference? There is, I know. I'm aware of it. But the deadline for Hollings is January 31st, okay? It's a hard deadline. January 31st at 11:59 p.m. If you miss it, and last year we had a student miss it after she spent, I don't even know how long she spent on her drafts, but she missed the deadline. She didn't submit it on time. There is no hitting the button and doing it again. So it's a hard deadline. I would recommend having it before that. How many of you are traveling for winter term? A lot of you. Probably going to places like Cuba where the Wi-Fi, as they call it, is not so stable. Yeah. So my advice to you is to have everything pretty much done before you go, and then any kind of tweaks that you have to do, you can do, of course, after in that little window.
And also remind your whoever's writing your recommendations, because a lot of them travel too. So like you don't want them to be in another country and not like forget or something. And
Or trying to track them down
Yeah,
when they don't
yeah,
have any
yeah.
Wi-Fi. It's very difficult.
Yeah, I know Herbert's not here, but Herbert's one of our scholars. He had a letter writer that was in Patagonia and we were not able to get a hold of him, and he was like, what's gonna happen with it? And I'm like, well, we will have to get a hold of him, and we finally did get a hold of him. It was like 11:32 of the night of the deadline. So advice for your professors, yeah, I know, Herbert was, there was a lot of kittens. He was having kittens, lots of furry kittens. That is a good advice though, is to make sure, do you have a sense of who you might ask? The requirements are pretty open this year. A couple years ago, it was 2 professors, and they had to be people who taught you. This year and last year, they cycled it down to 1 professor who's taught you, and one individual who supervised you. So, but it can be 2 professors too. My advice is to pick people that can really speak to not just the acumen and the skills that you have, but they can actually speak to what kind of, I guess you'd say, future prospect you might offer, right? So I always get the question of human experience professors. It really depends. It's on a case-by-case basis. I'm not in the sciences, but I've written Hollings letters. I was Herbert's other writer. I was Kyle Vincent's writer. And they were both in my human experience class, and I had no problem writing those letters. But I know Hollings fairly well. So I was able, I think, to address things that I don't know if all human experience professors can. So if you're kind of thinking human experience, it's not a bad thing. Lee Irby's, he's written a number of letters. Did any of you have human experience professors write? Yeah. And who did you have?
Erica Spore.
Yeah, Erica Spore. Yeah, I mean, she's in composition in the Writing Excellence program, and she's one that's familiar too with that. But it's really, I would say, kind of think about it and kind of consider who you might be asking. I always recommend asking a professor that knows you. So what this means is if you feel like they don't know you, it might be time to stop by their office hours, might be time to just plug back in and ask some questions. Kind of tell them that you're thinking about applying to the Hollings. Because I'm assuming some of you are also thinking about applying to some research experience for undergrads, REUs, summer research, things like that. So you're going to be asking them for letters anyway, so start that reciprocal kind of relationship now. The other thing that you want to start, as far as not just the essay and the letters, but also starting to think about, what will this look like for me, right? Hollings is not a passive scholarship. It's $37,000, give or take. So there is some scholarship funds for both your junior and your senior year, but there's a 10-week paid internship in there. And that means that's your summer between your junior and senior year. So considering what you want that to look like is also something that you want to kind of forecast, right? If you receive the Hollings in your sophomore year, in that May period, you go up to a symposium where you get together with other Hollings scholars, you talk about the research opportunities. There's a short kind of meet and greet with some of the mentors, but not all of them. And then you're kind of passed home.
You also meet the heads of each department of NOAA, so you meet the people in charge, basically.
And it does vary a little bit from year to year exactly what you'll be doing. Our year was a little weird because we actually ended up going later because of some
Funding.
stuff that was happening in the government. So we were only there for like 2.5 days, whereas you guys were there for like 5, 4.
You were there.
I don't know. I just know some of the people I was working with this summer, like our collaborators were like taking people kayaking. And I was like, we didn't get to do that.
No, and NOAA as an organization is funded by the government, and 2 years ago, the NOAA budget was not solidified until very late in the process. In fact, we didn't hear about it until I think you guys had 2 weeks between knowing and then going.
Something like
It
that.
was really condensed. Normally that's not the protocol. So with that in mind, those are some of the big picture things. Now as far as the nuts and bolts of what you need to do, first and foremost, December 7th is the campus deadline. Now the campus deadline for the Hollings is pretty much a simple Google form that you click on. I'll email it to you all. You click on it, you list your name, you list your 2 recommenders, and you put a draft of your essay in the Google form. Now, for most of you, this will be, I'm assuming, the 6th or 7th or 8th time that I've seen your essay. And it doesn't have to be a final version. It's just, it needs to be where you have it. The deadline isn't a gate. It is not like oh no, if you're not, like you have to be at this certain criteria. What it is for me to know how many of us need to get in contact over winter term and winter break. I do Skype calls, I do FaceTime calls, I do Google Hangouts. I go back and forth on drafts. I do a screen capture recording thing that can be a little bit weird when you hear me talking from the computer about your paper. But I do that over the winter break so that we can make sure that your application on January 31st is ready to go. And part of that, knowing what you need, is that December 7th deadline. This is also a time, as Anjali mentioned about the recommenders, that I can then reach out to professors and say, hey, by the way, you've got 10 Hollings letters that you're going to be writing. And they're like, well, what? I only know about 6. And then I can kind of figure that out, especially if you're asking, you know, the popular professors in your field, you know what they might be asked, how many letters they might be asked to write. So you want to kind of consider that too. The process of getting to December 7th starts, of course, for some of you a couple weeks ago, for some of you right now. The big thing is, first and foremost, go to the Noah Hollings webpage, and I will send that out via email tonight, and start your application. Go ahead and create your login, do the whole thing. There's a couple different tabs. One of the main tabs that you're going to want to focus on is kind of the basic personal information. There's a gatekeeper question. 3.0 is the minimum GPA. So if you're on the cusp of that, think about what you might be expecting to get at the end of this semester. And if it's going to help you and you're going to be solid 3.0, no worries. If you're worried at all, then this might be some strategy time too. They automatically look at your transcript, so it's not like you can be at a 2.999 if you don't, right? So the 3.0 is the gatekeeper for it. Otherwise, the information in that tab is pretty basic. Don't get your transcripts until after the fall semester's over, because they're going to want to see them. But do not wait until winter term. I had a couple students, I don't think last year, but the year before, I think they were waiting for winter term because they're like, I got an A on this and I want my winter term. And I'm like, don't wait, because you might miss out if a professor, I don't know, it might have been ski, doesn't turn his grades in on time, right? And so, probably, so, you don't want to roll that dice. So, all of you know you can get through EC Web, you can get your electronic transcripts. If you get those, if you get an e-copy of your transcripts, check your spam folder. I've had so many students who've done it that hit over and over again because they're like, well, I didn't get it. I'm like, well, now you got 10 copies of this thing and it charged you $8. Is it $8 or $12 a copy? Is it $10? It's $10 for each electronic copy. So check your spam folder when you do that. So that's your basic information on that page. Then at the bottom of that education page will be with 3 little boxes, and it'll say research experience. How many of you feel like you have some research experience right now? Okay, about half the room. How many of you are going to have some in the future, in either winter term or in the spring? Okay. How many of you have some potential for the summer? Okay.
Quick question.
Uh-huh.
International stuff,
No.
does that count?
It counts. Yeah, no, it counts.
If it's like from a Mexican institution,
What do you mean?
like from a college in Mexico.
Like you did research at it?
Yeah.
That counts. That counts as research.
That's cool.
Yeah, no,
This was
things that
something-
you did in high school, things that you did, I mean, I had a student that did a research project on the field, it was a field research on the behavior of some kind of dormouse from when she was 14. That counts. Research, I mean, if it was valid research that you did, it counts. And the way that it's structured, it's going to be misleading. You're going to see like what dates you had it, what was the position, and then it looks like this little box. That box opens up, right? And you can literally put 3 bullet items in there. Like, I'm trying to think, like what kind of research you did, who you worked with, did it result in a publication or something else? You can put future things. You can put like spring of 2018 or January to May of 2018. If you don't know the time frame.
No, because some of the applications started in December, and they don't get back to you until like the end of January if you got it or not.
I would only put things on there that you know are pending, that you've had a conversation. Like, for instance, here at Eckerd, we have a lot of professors that do research in the summer. If they've already said, hey, I would like you to be involved, and we just need to figure out funding, or we need to figure out what you can do with it, that is pretty much a confirmation. It can still say pending. You can still put the summer dates in there, but I would not put anything that you just applied for, unless you have kind of a verbal kind of okay. Freshman research definitely counts. If you've participated with any of our, as you can see, some of our individuals that are doing research for for your thesis, right? Yeah, yeah. You can also you can build on that too, like right now, if you want to, you can reach out to, this might be a good time to also, when you talk to your professors about your letters of rec, to say, hey, if there are any research opportunities that you might know of that I can get involved with. Even if it's volunteering, it looks good to have something. Also, I mean, I hate to get low-hanging fruit, but the pathobiology lab right on campus is an easy one to kind of do. How many of you have been over there? Pathobiology, manatee necropsies, and other things that they pull out of the water that I don't want to know about. But any of this can help, right? If this feels like it's the first time you've heard this, then we need to sit down and chit chat. My office is no longer in this building. Unfortunately, it's over in the Center for Academic Excellence. Literally under the sign is where I sit. I now have blinds, so you don't just see my face under the sign. But if you come by, we can talk about the strategies for this. That's that page, right? So research, the box opens up, fill it up, get good information in there. Then you go to the next box that lists your awards, honors, and other kind of, I guess you'd say, fellowships that you have. Then there's a box that lists extracurricular activities. Then there's a box that lists entrepreneurial activities. And everyone's like, entrepreneurial? I'm not an entrepreneur. That just means jobs. Or other things that you've done outside the academy. First box, do not write this in paragraph form. It's 2,000 characters. If you write in a paragraph, you're going to get very little. Think of it as a resume. So list, like if it's an award, list the dates you've had it, list what it is, and then list the amount. How many of you have received monies from Eckerd to come here? Founder Scholarship, President's Board of Trustees, those are some substantial awards. Put those down. If any of you have been given or accepted scholarships from other areas, even if it was in high school, put those down. If any of you were selected to be a TA, or to be an RA, or to assist in any kind of facilitation on campus, an RA, like a resident advisor, those are honors. That's something that you were selected to do. So that's what you can think about. Honor societies from high school, perfectly fine to include. They know you're a sophomore. They know that for the most part you've had 3 semesters under your belt. They're not expecting you to have tons of awards as a college student. So go ahead and pull in on those things from high school. I had a student once that wanted to put that they won a soil conservation essay contest from 3rd grade. I think that might be a reach, but if you really felt like it would work, put it in. There, you got it? You got that one? Okay. Well, yes, 4th grade science fair. I mean, so you want to consider which ones actually are applicable, but you can definitely target it. The mantra is people like to give people money that other people have given money to. It's truly if you win an award for one thing, you are traditionally you're looked more favorably at for another. So put down anything and everything. And the Eckerd, I mean, I know that one of the scholarships is basically $20,000 a year. 20 times 4, I mean, that's $80,000 worth of funding that have been given to you. So those are things that you want to kind of note on that. Any kind of leadership position you hold, put that there too. That's definitely an honor and award. Things that you've been that you've risen to the surface with. Like I said, don't paragraph it, write it in bullet form. The second area, extracurricular. This is stuff that you're involved with. Hollings loves to see team-oriented, community-centered activities. Because you're going to be part of a lab or part of a research experience. They want to know what kind of person you are. Sports, any kind of, like debate or any type of kind of speech-oriented music, band, all that stuff. Throw that information in there as a way to demonstrate, like list what activity, list the range of dates, and list what you did. Let them see what that looks like.
How far back can you go for extracurriculars?
It depends how much you have there. I mean, and everyone's gonna be a little bit different. Some people might have done 2 or 3 things in high school, and maybe have done 2 or 3 things here, and that's gonna be a good balance, right? 3 and 3, right? But some people may not have done much at Eckerd yet because you guys have been a little bit busy with academics, right? So you might not have had time to really branch out yet here because, well, none of you are an organic chem yet, right? So yes, that is its own extracurricular activity in many ways, right? But so it might be a little bit more high school centered. I had a student a couple years ago that applied that, had been fairly competitive in soccer, basically from like 4 years old through high school, and came here to play soccer, but then was injured, and then couldn't. And so it was all soccer, and so it was kind of like we need something different in there than just soccer, because that was really all that whole experience was. So you wanted, I would say, a balance. You have 2,000 characters, so there's actually quite a bit if you resume it. Did you guys find that when you were working on the application that you had plenty of space?
Yeah.
How many, was it like what was your balance to high school to college ratio, if you remember?
I think I just said college.
You just
Yeah, I
basically did
did
college.
I think there was like maybe, I did one thing from research in high school, but
Mhm.
pretty much everything else was college.
College.
I was on a career center for 4 years in high school, so I put that in there, but mostly
College. So, and everyone's going to be slightly different just because we all come to this from different points. So, we can take a look at that too and workshop it. The last one, jobs, entrepreneurial stuff, volunteering. Anything that how many of you got your 40 hours for service? Good. That the organization that you worked with could definitely count for one of those areas, right? Even though it was connected to the service that you've done for credit, you can still list that as one of the volunteer opportunities. Jobs. I want to say, I think it was Herbert, might have been Kyle. Someone listed that they've worked at the same place since they were like 12 years old. Like they always had a summer job. And that was one of the things that the Hollings made note of, was like the stability of this person is demonstrated by the fact that they've had this job for almost as long as they've been alive. And I just remember thinking, well, that's okay. That's a good thing. So go ahead and put jobs in there. Let them see that too. Especially responsibilities that you have. Just a little tip, add quantitative into those volunteering jobs and the extracurriculars. Like if you were part of the Marine Science Club, how many events did you help to organize? How many hours of service did you do? Show them the amount, not just like what you participated in. It helps to really capture what you've done. The 2 letters of reference, they get an email, so make sure you have their email address correct. We have had students that typed in the wrong email address and the professor did not get the email. So make sure the address is correct and they have it. If you do want to pick somebody from outside of the Eckerd bubble, let me know. I have a pretty good handout that I can give them. You guys didn't, because you had to have 2 professors. Did you have anyone outside Eckerd? Maybe it was Kyle. I think Kyle left. No, maybe Kyle didn't. He was the prior year. Herbert did. Herbert had somebody from Louisiana, from a program that he had done research with. And I just basically talked with the gentleman and kind of shared a little tip sheet on how to write a successful letter. It's just a little bit different than others just because of the bulk of it, and I'm happy to do that. And then of course the end, the last piece of the Hollings puzzle is the essay. Okay, essay is going to be cheesy the first time you write it. Embrace the cheese. What I would say before you even write it is basically pull out a piece of paper or open your computer and open a Word document and then cover the screen so that you cannot see the Word document that you're typing on. What you're gonna do is just then dump. Dump for like, set the timer for 5 minutes and just write everything you've ever done that you feel would make you a good candidate. And then then after 5 minutes, don't backspace and don't look at it. And then after that, do another 5 minutes where you just list all the things about you that make you wonderful. And then list all, just basically data dump. Just dump it all out. And then you have kind of like some foundations that, along with your resume and your transcript and other stuff, will at least give you some materials so that you don't write I have always loved the ocean. The ocean is my home. My blood is the same consistency as the water that I love. I say this because I've read this, right? You don't, you're like, why did you know that I wrote, yeah. So that you can start it out with, something meaningful. And don't be afraid that when you start writing that you're gonna be cheesy. Just embrace it. Just say it's gonna come out. The thing is that the key to it is that you don't wanna write aspirationally. You don't wanna write like, hey, pick me, but you wanna write like, hey, we are colleagues. I wanna be part of this with you. I understand there's a conversation that's been going on about this topic, and I'm really interested in contributing to that conversation. Not, I'm gonna fix it all, that I'm gonna save the coral reefs, I'm gonna save the world from climate change, that this is all gonna be fixed because I'm gonna get the Hollings. Don't do that either, right? We have to strike a balance. And it's okay that first time to be cheesy. I would love to, I don't wanna ever pull at people's essays and be like, and here's your cheesy one. But what did you feel really cheesy about your essays? I see you, Warren, you're a little bit blushing about it. What was cheesy, Tristan?
I started about a story about when I was 7 and I was walking on the beach and I found a seahorse on the beach and I was like, I fell in love with the ocean at that moment.
Yeah, write a little note. Don't use the word love, passion, or desire in your essay. We're not dating Noah. We're asking them to be in a research relationship with us. That's good though. That's great though that you made that because you don't need to show them that you love. Everyone that's applying to the Noah Hollings Scholarship loves the ocean or loves the environment. Everyone has a passion for this, or they wouldn't be applying. Weather. What about you guys? What were your cheesy points?
Mine felt just very
You
I was
were
the total
like-
opposite. Though.
You were
I was,
almost
super-
Teutonic. You're like,
yeah, I
no
was,
cheese. Anjali was like, there's no cheese in here at all. It was
Lactose
lactose intolerant. She was like, here's what I am, this is where I'm going, and this is what I want to do. And I'm like, we need something in there that makes you you. And she's like, nope, this is. So yes. So don't swing the pendulum too far to the side of the Teutonic. But yes. You want to have, because you do want them to want to read it. There's a panel of 3 individuals that will read each essay. And those 3, did you guys get any feedback on yours?
No, so apparently you have to request
Request
it
it.
right after getting it,
Mhm.
and I didn't know that, so I did not get it.
So you can request feedback on it. It's a little bit funky the way they do it. In the past, they just automatically gave it. Now, because of the sheer volume of people applying, they don't just automatically do it. But you want them to be engaged in your story. So this is where the cheese factor often kind of takes over, is that you try to think like, how can I really capture this? And if I have to do it, I have to do it jazzy hands, right? Well, you don't have to do that. You can think about kind of in a sense what it is about this organization and your role in the organization that you're really interested in, and what from your past kind of ties to that, right? I think, I'm trying to think, I remember reading one student who wrote a paper wrote an essay that really focused on how they felt in reference to the first time they actually got to dive by themselves, and kind of seeing the expectation of what they were going to see and what they did see was so totally different because of the degradation to the environment, right? And it was still cheesy in a way, right? But at the same time, the focus wasn't on this person diving, it was on the degradation that was that this person saw, that then allowed them to pull in the no emission statement. So, and I think that that's a successful way to do it. Most of them will start out with a kind of like, this is who I was, and then this is who I am now, and this is kind of the Eckerd time, and then this is what I want to do at NOAA. And then this is what I want to do in the future. So those are kind of those 4 main signposts that you'll be writing to. but it's not a template of sorts, it's just kind of a structure or an outline. And it can be twisted, it can be flipped, right? You can start out with, this is what I wanna do with Noah, here's what I've done in the past, here's what I'm gonna do in the future. This is, kind of my connection to it. You can play with it, but those are kind of the four main elements that you're gonna be connected to. The other big tip for the essay is to I wouldn't put a quote in there too. I think you were Sylvia Earling it. I think you had a Sylvia Earle quote in yours.
Maybe Brittany.
Maybe it was Brittany that had Earl.
That was her favorite.
It is a great person to quote, but at the same time, that quote is not about her or about you, right? That quote is about somebody else. Make this essay an argument for why you're the best candidate for this opportunity, which is why the other reason it's so hard to write it is you have to move past the thought that you don't want to humble brag. Well, you're not going to humble brag. You're actually going to make a declarative series of statements that demonstrate why you're a good candidate. And this is often the hardest thing to do. Writing through cheese you can do. Getting a connection to know what you can do, but actually thinking about how I can argue that I'm a good candidate is hard to accomplish.
How many scholarships do they give out a year?
It changes every year.
It changes every year based on funding. I think last year it was,
We had about 150.
What?
yeah,
Our year it was
Like
110.
yeah. It's you guys were a little bit down because of the funding. It's usually between 100 and 160, but 160 was one of the banner years. So my gut feels more like about 130, 135, which I think is where they usually end up. Eckerd is #1 in the nation for for Hollings scholars, not for Eckerd Hollings scholars. We haven't yet made it named after us, but we have a good track record. And I think one of the reasons we have a good track record is because we share a lot of the wealth back with the next class. For the last, I'd say, 4 or 5 years, we've been having these sessions. And we've been doing a lot of not just these sessions, but kind of one-on-one sessions, sharing drafts, getting feedback. The other thing we'll be doing is on November 26th, we'll be having a peer review session where I'm gonna ask you all just to bring your drafts, and we'll just kind of all sit down and kind of just share drafts and kind of go back and forth. It should be a kind of a workshop of sorts, but it could be a good time for you to also kind of finalize what you need to finalize too, when it comes to that also. But yeah, as far as how many, it does depend on the budget. They don't usually tell us before we apply. Last year, we had 42 students apply. Of the 42, I know 2 that didn't have the 3.0, but they just went ahead and applied anyway. They wanted the experience of it, which is good because it gives you the skill to kind of really think. So we had 40 accurate candidates, and we had, am I thinking 7? Wasn't 7? 6. We had 6 that got it. And we were, I think University of Miami got 7 last year. They went up us, but we are still in that area. So on the year you guys had it, there was
We had
8, yeah. So
But I don't think we had that. We didn't have as many people.
we
apply.
only had, I think, maybe 20, 21 that applied that year. You guys are a bumper crop of you guys have you're not the largest class anymore, by the way. The sophomore or the freshmen are the largest class at Eckerd. So we just keep letting more and more people in. We have to stem the tide at some point. But so with that in mind, just to let you know, the essay also needs to be you. So try to find that authentic piece of voice, right? Oh, I didn't even know you were hiding back there. What? Give us a tip or suggestion. You can't just hide and not, seriously? I thought I saw you at first, and then I'm like, nope, I don't see him anymore. So give us a tip.
I would say be specific with what you want to do in your essay. Don't be bad, pick something. I mean, they're not going to hold you to whatever you write in your essay and what your internship's going to be. So just pick something that you think you're going to want to do in the future and go with it. You may end up hating whatever that is, but don't leave it bad.
Don't be vague. Actually do some research on it and actually pull in, I am interested in this work that's being done because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, if you can find someone who's a lab and like you don't have to work with that person obviously, but like you can be like, this is a person who I know I'd be interested in working with. They really like that.
Yeah.
Definitely names. Yeah, name drop.
Name drop, name drop, name drop. And don't just hide in the corner. Thank you guys. Thank you. Name drop is important. So this means doing a little research. Go to the NOAA website. Look at, are you interested in OR? Like there's all these different acronyms that you're going to discover that are going to be under areas, and you can go down the wormhole of NOAA. So give yourself enough time. This is not something you want to write 2 weeks before you. What am I kidding? This is not. I had one student that a couple of years ago was like, I'm gonna apply for the Hollings. I'm like, it's due like in 2 days. Oh, I'll be fine. I can get it done. And I was just like, no, you can't. I didn't say that in a snarky way, but I really thought it in a snarky way. And of course, it didn't work out because you do need the time because it takes it, right? They also, the letters are due on the 31st, so not this weird artificial like 26th versus the 30th. Yeah.
We had like ours due earlier,
Uh-huh.
and then I had to deal with these weird
Time schedule.
time schedule.
Yeah.
Wait, so they're due on the 31st?
They're due on the 31st too. Everything will be due on the 31st.
And
So,
a tip for writing like the
Oh,
outline. I think NOAA has like 3 missions, like overall missions, and like Dr. Cat had me like write the 3 missions and list everything that I've done that has to do with each of 3 missions, and that helps a lot like structure where you want to put certain things. Like your community service might be under the service, like talking about how you relate back to their service mission and things like that. It's like super helpful too. So.
Also talking about name dropping, and literally you can talk about, be like, well, Noah's doing this, which I like because X, Y, and Z, and then you can like really be like, I know what I'm talking about what you are doing.
yeah. And demonstrating that knowledge is using both the research that they're doing, but also citing publications, right? You don't have to cite, this isn't a cited, like, you don't have to have evidence-based reasoning in a sense in this. But by saying, like Dr. John Smith, who's been doing research at the Straub Lab in Charleston, is really, really keenly interests me for future research. So you can drop that in. You can also pull in things that you're interested in the future. And this is the other thing that I want to kind of dovetail on is you're not going to be held to it. So if you say you want to go and get a PhD and you don't, you're not going to come back and take the Hollings away from you. Think about like where you want to be in the future really. So if you know that you want to go to the College of Charleston and that's all that ever was, write it down. But if you don't know where you want to go, but you're kind of interested in maybe doing research and in relation to, I would say various geologic forms that might be going away at some point, then mention that specific geographic area or geologic area. You don't have to you don't all have to be like, I want to be a PhD student and I want to get my degree and then I want to go and work for NOAA. It doesn't have to be that way. You can kind of be open about what you want to do, but think about your future. You want to tie it together. How specific were you guys with your future plans?
Very.
Oh, I was super specific.
Yeah, you were the super this is the school, this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm going. You
I
guys
was
weren't.
kind of vague.
Yeah.
I don't think I didn't say like I just said like I knew what I wanted to research, but where else?
And it's okay. It's okay to kind of pull that into the essay. Trying to think of anything else. Anything else, Hollings, that you would suggest to them?
Also, just be careful because a lot of people at NOAA work with international people, so make sure you're citing like a NOAA person, not somebody like a colleague. Because like with the Hollings, you can only do like stuff that's in the U.S. or U.S. territory. So don't say like I want to go do research in Australia because it's not. I don't think you can do that. Yeah. So just be careful about that too.
But American Samoa counts.
Yeah,
American
yeah.
Samoa.
Hawaii.
One other island that I saw.
Guam.
Guam. So who went to American Samoa? Courtney, that's right. We have, so you could go where Severe was once. So the key though is to make sure that you're thinking about this beforehand, that you're coming in And to be honest with you, you're gonna Triton Track's funky, and you can book me spunky. Send me an email or stop by my office, right? Like I will chit chat with you all. I will meet with you after hours. I will do Skype. I will do FaceTime. I will do Google Hangout. I will do all of that. I'm here as a resource to help you to kind of get this application across the finish line. Because I don't only think that it's important that you do it because, oh, the Hollings is $37,000. I mean, it is amazing and great. But I also think it's a great part of becoming comfortable with where you ultimately want to go. Because the next thing you're going to be looking at is, oh, wait a minute, this NSF REU thing you're talking about, I'm interested in that too. Like, what's that? Or, hey, what's Pathways to Science? Like, is there like links that I can look at for other summer stuff or even winter stuff? Hey, Moat's got some kind of and so this is just going to be another step in kind of helping you to kind of get that, kind of along, which ultimately helps you as you move into that future plan. So, with that in mind, this does, it says Center for Academic Excellence. So this is you guys have my contact information. I was going to say, you all, here, share around. So you know where to find me, and I know where, you've got emails. I've received a lot. Like, would you take a, and Anjali will probably testify that I do respond fairly quickly to,
Really good at that.
yeah,
It's like the best thing ever.
Use her as a resource also, like don't
yeah, in Cuba. And the Wi-Fi was not good in the Cuba. They tell me that, they're like, we have no Wi-Fi here. And I'm like, what the heck is Wi-Fi? And they're like, I'm like, Wi-Fi? And they're like, I'm like, I didn't expect it, but, so no, and I will definitely kind of try to help as much as I can, with feedback and observations. But a lot of the heavy lifting is going to come in those wee hours when you're drafting and writing this and kind of sharing it with your peers. All of our Hollings scholars that are here on campus are usually more than happy to kind of chat with you or sit down or take a look at essays or look at applications, because they understand where you are in a very different way than I can understand that. So they can give you feedback too.
I'm also a peer coach, so I do have,
Ooh,
you
yeah.
can book me, and I do have like hours where I can set aside to like meet with you if you want. On the Center for Academic Excellence website.
Exactly.
I'm not, but you can email me, and I'm more than happy to like read anything.
Actually read mine
Yeah.
today, and it was like the best advice ever.
Yeah, I also am a marine science tutor, which like that's not traditionally what that's for, but I'm there every Sunday, so you can bring your essays in there too. And Eliza and I both work Sundays.
Oh,
So
good.
we'll be there.
We're calc tutors, so I'm sure.
Come talk to us out.
Yes, but calc, I mean, you could be like, hi, calculus in my essay is not
If you're in a
working.
math class and we can launch you into the system, we got you.
Did you have any math professors at your? I did. I had Dr. Riesenhauer, right?
Mhm. Which is good. I mean, and you don't have to just have our marine biologists or marine or any of the marine science professors write it. We had students who've had, who've taken the environmental studies track for the Hollings, which is also part of this. I mean, it's while it feels very marine oriented, there's a lot of different runways for it.
And there are a lot of people from other schools
Yeah.
who are Hollings scholars who don't even know what marine science.
Yeah.
Like there's so many.
More, yeah.
Meteorology.
Yeah.
So much meteorology and chemistry. Yeah.
No one is atmospheric sciences as well.
Yeah.
And so it was real surprising.
I like the ocean. Why are we talking about this?
Literally
I felt
every,
like the minority.
Yeah.
side of the
I think like every section of NOAA except for the 1 of 6 is like some like math or like something that like I was like, what? Why did I sit through this?
Well, and it's you become part of it. This like group of I guess you'd say both at Eckerd but also beyond. That then you can start looking at like there's the Nancy Foster Award, which is for graduate school. There's a 2-year program for coral restoration and research that I think we're in an off year right now, but you can basically apply to it's a post baccalaureate, so it's after graduation. You can go and do 2 years of intense research with NOAA. And there's so much, yeah. I mean, there's so much out there, and I think this is just the first step. So what I urge you to do is spend some time with the NOAA website, get yourself started on the application, start writing. start thinking, start writing. Allow yourself enough space that you can actually kind of get through there. Know that there's going to be the meeting on November 26th, which will be kind of the peer review workshop. And then know that the deadline's December 7th for campus, which will be pretty basic. It won't be anything scary. You have to be a chronological sophomore, so even if you have junior credits, how many of you have junior credits? Some of you, yeah. As long as you're chronologically going to graduate and you are in that sophomore area, you're perfectly fine. You don't have to make any declarations. And it also doesn't mean that that you're locked into that too. We had a Hollings scholar that graduated a semester early. Yeah. That's perfectly fine too. They just want that. They want the funding year. So.
You just don't get the money for licensure.
Yeah. But you don't spend it either.
You don't spend it either.
There is that too. So questions, comments, concerns. Some of you look a little bit scared. Some of you look a little bit like, oh gosh, that's a lot of information. I've recorded it all.
Just out of curiosity, people who already did their internships, what do you guys do?
I actually combined mine with Duke University, so I was like had like a joint NOAA and like grad school opportunity. So my focus was more trying to get into grad school, so that's what I did. In my essay, I wrote about going to Hawaii, but that didn't ended up at North Carolina. So.
Not Hawaii, but kind of.
I mean, grad school, what?
I also wrote about going to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took kind of a different path than I was expecting to take. I did a lot of, I wasn't after credits last year, so I was thinking I was going to try and keep doing core research. And then as I was looking at internships, I kind of realized, wait, maybe I should do something else and make sure that like I actually know what I want to do with my life instead of just like deciding on one thing and never doing anything else ever again. So I actually ended up going to the Chesapeake Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve, and I was doing education research, so kind of teaching kids about sustainability and estuaries, and doing a lot of curriculum writing, and then also analysis of resources for teachers. So yeah, it was really cool, and I got to like kind of help out and see a lot of scientific stuff that they're doing, because the Chesapeake Bay NEARS is in partnership with the Virginia Institute of Marine Science. So I was also getting to kind of look around all their labs, and it was a cool opportunity to kind of do some education, but also to get involved with a facility that was doing a lot of other cool stuff. So like I met a documentary filmmaker who's like making a movie about the Chesapeake Bay that's like a sequel to one he already made, and like they had like all these sharks there, and like they have the biggest fish collection in the world there, so I got to like tour the fish collection. It was really cool.
And that's like one of the cool things about the Hollings that they don't really tell you. It's kind of a secret, but you can like really like the internship. You can really make up your own internship. It doesn't have to be something.
I was just going to say, for even
yeah.
those that haven't done it yet, how are you finding the process right now of getting in?
So I actually just confirmed my internship today.
Ooh.
Yeah, pretty cool. So I'm going to be going out to Washington State and studying hatchery development of Pacific lamprey, which is like an endangered species. So I'm going to be living on a Native American reserve there and basically working in a hatchery out there, figuring out the best methods for propagating these lamprey. Pretty cool. But it's like super easy. You basically, there's a huge database of possible internships that NOAA rapidly posts. You find one that you look at that looks interesting to you, you email them, you start a conversation with them, do an interview, and then they're like, we want you, or we don't want you. Yeah.
And if you don't see anything on there, you can just contact somebody, and like you're fully funded, so anybody will take you to do whatever you want to do.
So Courtney, who went to American Samoa,
she
just
made it up. She was like, hey, can I come here? And they were like, yes, you have money.
Yeah, and I made mine up too because I was fully funded, so I was I mean, it actually works out that a lot of NOAA labs are right by like really good institutions. So if you're thinking of grad school, like Scripps has like a NOAA lab that's on Scripps campus, so you can do joint appointments where you have like a NOAA advisor. Or if like you already know, like maybe you're like, I don't want to go into the government at all, I still would apply for this, because you just have to have a NOAA person on your committee. Mm-hmm. And like basically I spent like 90% of the time at Duke. Like my advisor was awesome, but like I realized really early on government was not going to be my thing.
Yeah, and my advisor was not technically a NOAA employee either. She worked at the Virginia Institute of Marine Science, and then like the head of NOAA education basically was my
And what about as far as like your process?
I have an interview for an internship on Tuesday, so I haven't secured one yet.
Yeah.
I know that Eliza has one.
Yeah.
And I mean, you'll find it at different points in time. Like I know people that didn't find their internship till like January of like that year. I know somebody that just called someone up and like made it up and was just like, hey, I want to come work in your lab. So I think everybody's different. You just kind of find what works for you.
And where are you? You're in the same process. And so it is really, as was mentioned, you've got funding. So while there will be a list of mentors that you can engage and reach out to and interview and do all that, you can also think about what you want to do with it too. And this is great practice too when you're starting to think about like Fulbright, graduate school, all that other wonderful stuff that's going to be coming up in about 15 minutes when you're juniors and seniors. Because it goes by like that. How many of you thought freshman year was going to take forever, and now you're like, wait a minute, I'm a sophomore. What? Yeah. So it goes by quickly. So, yeah, you guys are usually like, what? So, any other questions, comments, concerns? Good. Everyone's feeling good about it? Okay. Well, like I said, I will be posting the recording. I will also, just so that you guys know, my LIB guide, some of you know, some of you don't know, it's just my address is at the bottom of my email, and it says for more information about opportunities, click here. And on that LIB guide, I keep all the tips and suggestions from each year on a Hollings page, and I also keep all the video recordings like tonight on there, so you can take a look at them. So that's another place too. There's also on that same LIB guide, there's a drop down on the majors under marine science, and I put opportunities up there all the time that you should be looking at. I will also email them out. How many of you get my emails already? Like my random, like, look at this opportunity. Yeah. Look at that opportunity. Yeah. I like to send out random emails. And some of them are like, this won't fit me. And I'm like, everyone gets a card, but not really a card. More of an opportunity. So thank you guys for coming. Keep me posted. Use your resources right through the cheese. Thank you guys so much. Let me get this recording off.